Good evening. Welcome to the April 19th meeting of the Newmarket Town Council. And to begin with, I'd like to call pledge to allegiance, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first two items on the agenda are a public forum and then a public hearing on parking violations and permitted parking in the town. And at this point, the only person in the audience is the head of our water and sewer department. So I think we will call an end to the public forum and a public hearing at this point, and move on to minutes. So March 30th organizational meeting minutes. I think could I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
And any corrections or discussions? Mr. Burns?
Yeah, just a correction on, I just had it, hold on, I gotta scroll down to it. It was where the committees were listed.
Page 10, I think.
Thank you. Yes, here we go. Page 10 for planning board, we have full counselor Burns and alternate Pike. It should be alternate Cast. Yes.
What's the law? Can you give me the law?
Yep, 131. Sorry, should have done that. Yeah. So it should be full member Counselor Burns, alternate Counselor Cast. That's okay. And I thought I saw something else somewhere, but now I can't find it, so we can move on.
Anything else for the March 30 minutes? Take a vote then, I would.
Councilor Burns.
Aye.
Councilor Finch.
Aye.
Councilor Thompson's not here. Councilor Cass.
Aye.
Councilor Bowden.
Aye.
Councilor Weinstein.
Aye.
Chairman Pike.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Yeah, and I'll mention right now that Councilor Thompson had let us know that she would not be here, and in fact gave us some comments to work with, which I appreciate her effort to go through the packet, even though she's not here, and is excused. So, can I have a motion for the April 5th regular meeting minutes?
So moved?
Second? Oh, go ahead.
Okay, any comments on that? I'll read it first then while anybody else is looking for theirs. On page 15 of the packet, line 216, I'll just read it exactly what she put in her email. This is from Councilor Thompson. She says, "I did not second what the other councilors said entirely. What I said was, I appreciated the efforts of workers and staff to get polls ready and open so we were rolling on time before the moderator got there. I feel the minutes do not reflect that accurately."
Can you give me a copy of that?
I will give you this
Okay.
as soon as the meeting is over, because I have the original email. I just printed an email to her.
I think this is from before, but I'm not sure.
What's that?
I bet this might be from before, but I'm not sure.
Because that's years. That's, yeah. I never used this before. I need lessons.
This is from Amy Burns.
Okay.
Was this from before, Amy?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
But then Gretchen.
Appreciate that. Okay, any other comments from the April 5th Town Council meeting?
Gretchen.
Oh, here we go.
Technology.
Wow.
Yes, so not sure which page it is, but it's line 131. And I went back and double-checked on the video. The date on that line should be, let me check my notes, June 1st of 2018. That's row 131. And then I think where the date July came from was on row 137, line 137, when it was talking about, so and then maybe there's a little bit of correction on the verbiage too, because the context of that was that the town administrator was explaining that if we don't file before July 1st of 2017, we will not have the opportunity to change the permit, request any other
This is
changes.
relative to MS4.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I'm sorry.
No, that-
Thanks for giving that context. And that we would have to stick with the permit. So, do you want me to restate that? Or say it again? Okay. So, the date on 131, that date is June 1st. On line 137, or the comments around line 137, the town administrator was explaining that there's a July 1st of 2017 deadline to submit the appeal. Otherwise, the town would not be able to ask to change the permit after that date.
What line was that on?
Say again?
137, you said?
Yeah, that was on 137. It's that context of the July 1st of 2017 is kind of missing from the minutes. So that's why you might want
I
to,
was confused, I thought he was talking about the July 1st.
yeah, it goes back and forth a little bit in the
All
tape,
right.
so
Yeah, I have the.
July 1st, 2018 is when
All right,
fines would
fixed
be.
it.
June 1st of 2018 on 131, and July 1st of 2017 is the deadline to file for appeal, which should go somewhere around line 137,
thing?
but it's not in there, is it?
It's 131, correct?
Oh, okay. Well, I don't put everything.
No, there's a compliance date, which is in 2018, and there's a deadline to file an appeal this year. Does that help?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the lines.
Yeah. So in 131, he's talking about the compliance. That was the context, I thought of that. He said we would need to be
Okay.
in compliance with this,
By 2018.
but the date is June 1st, not July 1st.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's the only correction there.
So those are the only changes proposed?
I just had a question about how, I don't know if this is appropriate. When I'm reading it and it refers to their, and I know that it means the town of Newmarket, do we say the town of Newmarket or our in place of their? There's a number of places, so that's sort of a general question.
Read one of the sentences, just so I get the...
Okay, let me give an example. So on row 139, and it says, it said they had the money in the Stormwater Capital Reserve Fund, but when I reviewed the tape, he says, and we have the money in the Stormwater Capital Reserve Fund. So.
Usually use we, because I'm referring back.
Yeah, so that's what I thought, but it's generally in that whole section between 133 and 142, it's referring to the town or us as their or they.
It's confusing.
It might be to, if someone comes back to read it later, I know what you meant, but, because I was there.
Would you normally, Patty, would you normally say we or when it's Newmarket in that circumstance?
I would speak in the first person usually. Pass.
That was my question, like, if we use they
So I
and,
would say they.
that's
or-
fine.
So if that's your normal practice,
Yeah.
then I would say I think, as you said, it was a question.
Yeah, it was a question first, yeah.
I don't know that I've noticed it, but it's good to bring it up, so,
I would say it over again, you see 139, Griffin?
yeah. I think the main thing is as long as it's consistent. is what you're saying.
Yeah, it is.
So, I think we approve it pending the changes that will be made, right? So, we run the roll on that basis?
The motion was made by Councilor Burns and seconded by Councilor Weinstein. Councilor Burns?
Aye.
Councilor Finch?
Aye.
Councilor Cass?
Aye.
Councilor Bowden?
Aye.
Councilor Weinstein?
Aye.
Chairman Pike?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
And I'll point out, because it's done differently in quite a few of the boards, but I'll just make the comment that I wasn't here at the last meeting, but I think I've had the town administrator explain to me about a half dozen times now that you don't have to have been at the meeting if you've reviewed the minutes and you are comfortable that your colleagues have seen the tape, then you don't have to attend the meeting. You can vote aye. Okay, report of the town administrator. I understand you will be, Chief Crew, you'll be collecting questions for the town administrator.
The town administrator is on vacation and has asked that any questions be sent to me to be forwarded to him.
You have no other comments on the report?
I do not.
Okay. Does anybody have questions for the report? Councilor Weinstein.
I just had a quick comment, and that was on the police report, which, thank you for being here. And I had asked about, I'm just going to pull it up, sorry, about getting some background information for statistics, and it's here, and I really appreciate it being here. And I was wondering, so we have 2015, 2016, 2017 information for the month of March, and I was wondering, Chief True, if you've seen any trends or, I know it's just a snapshot of a month, so it's probably, for me looking at this information, it doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of meaning right now, but I thought since you're here, I could ask that question.
Well, I think in with regards to the police department, we do see trends, and I've used this term before. It's a pendulum swinging when it comes to overdoses and deaths. I know you'll see those numbers fluctuate when it comes to unattended deaths and overdoses. So right now, with regards to the overdoses, we are doing better than we did in 2015, and we are doing worse than we did in 2016 thus far. It doesn't mean that it's not going to get better. I'm hoping it's going to level off.
Right.
But with regards to the rest of the report, traffic accidents are consistent with past years. Overall crime is low. Violent crime is low. And property crimes with regards to thefts, that is consistent. It's remained consistent over the past few years. No changes.
Great, thank you.
Relatively safe community.
It is. Thank you. I appreciate your work.
Any other questions? While you're looking or thinking, I have a comment from, a couple of comments from Councilor Thompson. She thanks Doug Poulin again for a great job on his part. And I think I would view it as a general one. I think she's asking in the case of the planning report, but it could be general, to make sure if there are things that, as things age, it's good to drop off section. I like the way Diane actually puts in sections and updates them, but if they're older and have been approved a while back and have nothing has changed on, Councilor Thompson asks that they be dropped off at some point. And I think that's all. The other thing, I think it was in the town administrator report. There were things I didn't understand about he had a report on the telephone system. He doesn't need, they're talking about a new telephone system. I wouldn't mind if he would take that item and copy it into his report again next time, just because I did have some questions on that.
Sure.
And there's nobody really to ask him for, and I think there were several, so it'd be easier if we could do it in that format.
Yes, I agree with that. That was, should I officially?
If you want to make more comments, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that the upgrading the phone system is certainly a good idea. In my professional opinion, I would never go with a 5-year term on any phone system or technology. that's just my professional opinion. It's what I do for a living, and I can explain that in greater depth if one would like, but that's is my concern. Also, this is something that is it's not my job. I'm not Doug Bullen. He's doing his job. He's doing a great job. But I know that there are different programs out there that we can piggyback off of, that the state of New Hampshire can piggyback off, such as the Commonwealth, Massachusetts, purchasing agreement for technology, telecommunications technology, and there may be some more meat on the bone to take off. But other than that, no further comment.
Okay. Any other comments on the administrative report? If not, we move on to committee reports. Councilor Burns.
Okay, the planning board met last week, and so just to update you on some of the things we talked about. We reviewed the signage and aesthetic regulations and the update from the zoning subcommittee. So we reviewed all of those, and those are going to go to public hearing May 9th at our next meeting. So we also talked about some new road zoning changes, and that's for the assisted living for the overlay district. And so we just went through some of the items there. And then we also talked about the design study, I believe. It was, just like the acreage and the setback and that kind of thing. We talked about that. Let's see what else. And, we're continuing to work on the overlay district. So that's something that's ongoing.
Very good. And, I'm actually going to back up for a second to the administrator's report, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And I just would, not so much a question as a comment. I don't know if this is specific to the iPad, but I went through the MRI report update, and when you look at the comments section, which I will point out, Chief Crew, that at a previous meeting I complimented you on being one of the first to really have good updates in there on
Thank
that
you.
MRI. The issue I saw in this is some of these, it may be a formatting thing, but some of them the comments are cut off, so you can't. So they either, and it's fine, they can stretch that out. That's something I wouldn't mind, having the whole, everything available. So, and I'll just mention here, I was at a meeting with the town administrator before he left, and we are expecting to start a process where we kind of set up a dialogue with department heads so we can not only see your written report, but sort of hear how you've approached the MRI recommendations. I think that will be a good thing to understand better. And be an easier format to ask follow-up questions without making the meetings too long. So, going back to committee reports, do we have other committee reports at this time?
Yes.
Okay. And I should have seen your light. But
Sorry, I just clicked it.
Still learning.
Last week, the Conservation Committee met. We had a brief meeting with a brief public meeting with a few things that came up. One of them being the fishing derby that's coming up on Father's Day weekend. So we discussed that, some of the logistics, and typically the Conservation Committee kicks in around 1,500. I think that's going to hold true this year as well. The second thing we discussed was some initial plans and kind of looking into things for Shawmeyer Park. What came up there was kind of mapping for the kiosks. So we've been in contact with 4 different cartographers that we're going to, or map makers, sorry. And we've got a couple quotes back, but obviously there's a few moving parts there in terms of actually physically mapping the area and then turning that data over to the map makers. The other thing that came up too, there had been proposal for a bridge to cross the inlet in Shopmeyer Park, and that instead of doing a permanent bridge, it sounds like the trend is towards a floating dock, which would have it would be removable in the winter, and it'd have a kayak launch built into the center of it, so it'd be a little bit more, offer some flexibility and more usefulness, because you could break it down in the winter, and it's the launch should be pretty good. So those are the things that came up. Bring that.
Right. And seeing no other reports, we move on to old business, resolutions and ordinances in the second reading. And the first of those is ordinance number 2016-17-02, an ordinance amending Chapter 30 of the Code of the Town of Newmarket, New Hampshire, increasing parking violations and allowing permitted parking in certain lots. Whereas the town is in need of additional, that's the wrong one. Oh, I know why, because that's way back at the public hearing at the beginning. Pardon me. It's going to take a while. Let's see. There we go. So I am not going to read this whole thing. We had a public hearing on that earlier, but it is basically, or did you?
We read it in name only.
You read it in name only, and I think I've done that.
Yeah.
So, are there any, could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Oh, sorry. That's nice.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Councilor Weinstein.
So, in the first page, under section 4, or number 4, it says any person found violate, so that paragraph, and then there's A and B, and it's a $20 fine for any violation in subsection 1 of this section, and $30 for violation in subsection 2 of this section. And I just want it to be clear that those aren't included in this ordinance, subsection 1 and subsection 2. They are in the administrator's report.
Yes.
But if anyone had any questions about what those are, they're in the administrator's report, and they are a part of the ordinance. They're just not in this
Right.
written
Yes.
part.
Yes. Yes, it took me a while to figure that
Yep.
out, too. So do you have any comments of a general nature about these changes or parking?
I do not. I think it's going to benefit some of our residents who need parking, that they can come down to the police department to get a parking pass. It's a first come, first serve.
Is there a charge for the parking pass?
There is,
Okay.
yes.
And is that stated in here? Did I miss it?
It is, I'm not 100% sure if it's in the ordinance itself. The ordinance may state that the police department can establish
Okay.
guidelines for parking, and we do have guidelines established for parking. But the other part of this change is it brings Newmarket in line with what our surrounding communities are doing with fines. We're updating our fine schedule. We're right in the medium. We're not high, we're not low, we're right in the middle.
Yeah. Okay. Councilor Cast?
I had a question about section 30-43, night parking and snow removal. I just wanted to get a kind of a clarification about the intent there. Is that to, I would assume when you're doing snow removal, you need cars out of the way.
Yes.
But if you're permitting people to park, how does that work
We'll follow-
together with snow removal?
Public Works will plow around them.
Okay, all right.
We're not going to wake them up in the middle of the night to make them move their car if they're leasing this spot.
Okay,
They'll plow around them and then come back the next day to clean it up.
okay. And that doesn't present a problem for snow removal?
No.
Okay, all right.
Counselor Bowden.
I guess in regards to enforcing the violations, that's a dumb question, but how is that done today, and how
Give me an example of what type of violation?
if somebody's parking in a spot that says 2-hour parking,
Okay.
and they park there all day, they either work somewhere in the area, but they're parking there for far more than 2 hours. I've done it,
Yeah?
so I'll come down and pay my fine.
And the officers do the best they can to enforce the 2-hour parking. Unfortunately, we do not have the staff to have somebody assigned to parking. So if the
Okay.
officers are having a slow day and can enforce it, they will. But unfortunately, our patrol officers during the daytime are going call to call.
Okay.
So, with regards to other violations that are obvious, handicap parking, fire hydrant parking, parking the wrong way, items that are not time consuming where we have to mark a tire and then come back and check it in 2 hours. If they see it, they'll stop and they'll address it, either by finding the owner and having them move the car, or addressing it with a parking ticket.
Okay. I think parking ticket would bring the town more revenue, right?
It does create a revenue. The goal, my goal is not to make parking enforcement a revenue generator by any means. It's to correct behavior and to correct parking problems,
Right.
and to address the needs of the businesses, but it's not a revenue generator in my
Right.
opinion, and it shouldn't be.
Sarcasm.
Yeah, okay.
Counselor Cast.
So section 4-38 regarding the designated lots and spaces. So there's a new sentence towards the end of the first paragraph saying permits do not guarantee a parking space for a vehicle except during those hours.
Correct.
So I think, is there kind of an implied implication there that only so many permits are going to be issued for that designated parking area in
Well,
order to guarantee it?
For example, the library parking lot, well, we call it the library lot, it's the Elm Spring Street lot. Right now, there's 10 parking spaces.
Right.
When the officers drive through on the midnight shift, if they see a vehicle parked in one of those spaces that does not have a parking pass, they're getting a parking ticket.
Okay.
So, to answer your question, I guess you're asking, how are we going to enforce this if there aren't enough spaces? Is that what you're asking?
I just wanted to make sure it's explicitly saying it's not guaranteeing a parking space.
But I think the point is that only people with permits can park there.
Can park there.
Yes.
During those
Okay.
hours.
But there aren't going to be assigned spaces or just
Right.
enough permits
During
for those
other
spaces.
hours, it's first come, first serve, and anybody can use those spaces. But if somebody needs a place to overnight park,
Mhm.
then they will be able to park there
To
and
provide
not be
for that.
ticketed.
Okay.
Is that?
Yeah, what it's saying is, you're guaranteed a spot between the hours of 1 and 5.
Counselor Weinstein.
I thought I would also just comment that one of the lots listed is the Bay Road lot, and I think that's been an unofficial lot for a long time. And it was in the administrator's report that that's in the plan for paving for this year, so it'll be an official, safe lot on Bay Road. Safer, anyway, because now it's full of potholes and.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, can we call the roll, please?
Counselor Burns.
Aye.
Counselor Finch.
Aye.
Counselor Cast.
Aye.
Counselor Bowden.
Aye.
Counselor Weinstein.
Aye.
Chairman Pike. Motion carries 6-0.
Okay. Back here a little bit. This is the next resolution, is resolution number 2617-28, relating to the Tucker land purchase. Whereas the town is in need of additional water supply to meet its current and future demands. Whereas the town has permitted a 275-gallon per minute bedrock well on the Tucker property. Whereas the town of Newmarket water system update and capital improvement plan that was performed by AECom recommends the town develop the Tucker well to meet its current and future water demands. Whereas the town has signed a purchase and sales agreement with Sharon Tucker for the sum of $435,000. Now therefore be it resolved that the Newmarket Town Council does authorize $435,000 be withdrawn from the Water Capital Reserve Fund for the purchase of the Tucker property for the development of a new bedrock well. And can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay. And we have Water and Sewer Superintendent Greg here if there are questions. Thank you for coming.
Okay. Reason I'm here tonight is for the Tucker well. A little bit of a history on the Tucker well. Back in 2001, we had a drought, and the Bennett and Sewell wells, we shut them down and started up our surface water plant. And by 2005, our surface water plant did not meet the safe drinking water standards, so we had to shut it down at that time. And there was a decision made. There was a study done on the plant to see if we should upgrade it or look for other water sources. We hired Emery Garrett in 2005 to locate some bedrock wells for us. They went all over town. They did studies, and they located several locations, and the best two locations where they drilled were on the McIntosh property and the Tucker property. At that point in time, we did permit both wells, and I believe in 2007, 2008, we purchased the McIntosh well. We permitted both of them, however, we were only able to get the permit for the McIntosh well because we own that property. We do not own the property for the Tucker well, so we cannot have that permit. Once we purchase the property, we have we've permitted and we've water tested a 275-gallon-a-minute well. We did a study back in 2010 where AECom said that we need this well. We need additional water supply. We have gone all over town looking for water. You know, the good spots are taken up and there's less and less area to find water. The other thing that needs to be done is when you find a well, you actually have to control a 400-foot radius around that well to be able to pump off it. So we have come to an agreement with Sharon Tucker to purchase this property that has the well for $435,000. And we've been saving this money in our capital reserve account, so for this purpose. So, any questions?
I think the one just to refresh my memory, because we voted on this more or less at the previous council, right? Was that what was the difference between what we voted on then? Was that the subdivision of it, or?
We went through planning board. You voted to allow the town administrator to enter into an agreement with it.
Okay.
This
just moves as a fund.
This finalizes the deal.
Yes. Okay. So the previous council did review this and heard these, and voted, I think, 7-0 in favor. So it's been well vetted by now. So call the roll, please.
Motion was made by Councilor Weinstein and seconded by Councilor Cast. Councilor Burns.
Aye.
Councilor Finch.
Aye.
Councilor Cast.
Aye.
Councilor Bowden.
Aye.
Councilor Weinstein.
Aye.
Chairman Pike.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay. Oh, Bowden? I'm sorry if I missed.
One question. It does state in the report the water ban still in effect.
The water ban is still in effect, yes.
What the levels are at currently?
What is going on right now is we've cut the Bennett and Sewell wells back about 70, 80 gallons a minute.
Okay.
So the Sewell well used to pump around 270 gallons a minute. Right now it's pumping 210.
Yeah.
And the Bennett well used to pump 220. It's down around 140 gallons a minute. They are doing better. However, we're not seeing the full blend at the McIntosh well facility yet. That begins on May 1st. Because we're being, we can't, the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services is put us on a schedule to bring it up slowly and feed the water in slowly till it gets to, so we can test and monitor to see what kind of effects that water has on our water system.
Okay.
So that happens, we hit our 60% blend come May 1st, and at that point in time, we'll probably make a decision on the, on what we're gonna do with the water ban.
Okay.
But currently, we're at a stage 4, and the decision should be made the 1st of May on where we go with that water ban. The water levels have come back, but we cannot sustain the past pumping rates that we've had in the past. So the groundwater is getting better, but we're not back to where we were, or where we should be.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Sorry. When you say you've cut back the pumping on the wells,
Yes.
what impact does that have? I mean, obviously, it's pumping less water, but besides that, to the system, what does that do?
Well, the biggest thing it does for us is it gives us a more cushion. We don't have as much drawdown. So ideally, when we used to pump 270 gallons a minute out of Sewell, we would, at this time of year, we would go from 24 feet water level down to about 52 feet water level. And we were able to pump, and then as you went through the summer, you know, we would get to about 54 feet. You'd see it drop, and then it would start to come back in the fall, in the spring, and then we'd start over again. Currently now, we're getting into that 52 feet at the 210 gallon a minute level. We can't sustain that higher pumping level that we used to be able, because there's not enough water in the ground to fill that bowl. So I think the biggest thing is, if I was to turn it up to 270 gallons a minute, you would see it go to probably around 59 feet. The well, the screen is around, I believe, around 68 or 69 feet. So by turning it back, it reduces the pumping that we're doing, which is allowing it to come back faster. And it's also given us more room between that screen.
And do homeowners feel an effect from that? Like,
No.
does it change water pressure or anything like that? No.
No.
Okay.
We're actually pumping more gallons a minute now because the McIntosh well is online. So when you actually look at the total volume. So typically, we pump about 140 million gallons a year out of that aquifer. And by bringing the McIntosh well online, we're going to probably reduce that by about 60, 70 million gallons out of that aquifer.
Wow.
So it's going to take time. It took us a few years because of this drought to get down to that point. It's going to take us a little time to get out of it. But the McIntosh well is definitely helping us. If we didn't have that, we'd be in deep trouble.
Good to know. Thank you.
So is it, just from my understanding, is it that much of it's more about getting through the process of May 1st so that we're allowed to blend in more of the McIntosh water
And we're gonna
how
look-
much rain, because people are going to want to know if they should do any planting this
And-
May, you know.
And we're what, 10 days away from making that decision? We're
Right.
going to look at the water levels. We're going to look at, we're going to take an evaluation and see where we're at. Plus, we'll have the McIntosh at its full capacity, and we're going to make a decision on where we're going.
Okay.
I just don't want to commit to anything right now.
No,
Not
just
till
trying, I
that-
think people are probably curious in understanding what will affect that decision.
Yes.
How I know that Portsmouth was in the news recently that they've dropped back their level of
restriction.
And we're still, I just received from the state, we're still, our areas in a moderate drought. That's
Yeah.
where we're labeled as. So we're not out of the woods yet. The northern country is out of the drought, but we're not.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Thank you.
all right? Yep.
Okay. Next is resolution number 2016-17-29, purchase of a Ford police cruiser for the police department to include costs associated with replacement of emergency lighting and equipment setup. Whereas the police department seeks to replace the current 2011 Ford Crown Victoria with 91,000 miles with a new Ford police cruiser at the state bid price of $28,765. And whereas the department's request includes the replacement of emergency lighting and equipment setup, the cost of lettering the vehicle, and whereas the police vehicle's capital reserve fund currently has a balance of $221,291, whereas the total cost of the vehicle and related equipment to include lettering is estimated not to exceed $47,082.95. Now therefore be it resolved that the Newmarket Town Council does hereby approve the withdrawal of funds not to exceed $47,082.95 from the Police Vehicle Capital Reserve Fund for the purpose of purchasing and equipping a new Ford police cruiser for the town, and to authorize the town administrator to execute any associated agreements. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Third? Okay. And go ahead.
I just have a question about the, sorry. I guess the outfitting of it, and
Sure.
there were 3 different quotes,
Yes.
and we chose to go with OSP, which was the most expensive, so I was just wondering.
We did,
why.
there was a difference of $889 between the 3. They were all generally around the same area. Over the past 2 years, I believe it's 2 years, we've gone with OSP Mountain Electronics. And the quality of their work is second to none. They have been consistent. Their customer service has been outstanding. And any issues that we've had have been addressed in a timely manner so as to not sideline the vehicle. We don't wait in line like we would at some other agencies. The other companies they do great work, but it's my opinion that OSP Mountain does better work. And I think for $889, I would lose $889 if I had to pay staff to keep driving a vehicle back and forth to another company. So that's why my request was to use OSP Mountain Electronics.
Thank you.
And I'll mention at this point that that was another comment that Councilor Thompson sent me by email that she, I'll read it exactly. She says, cruiser, etc. No, I understand OSP currently does work with us, but they are $900 more than lowest bidders, so no. So just thought it appropriate time to give her comment on that. She was okay with all the other resolutions. That's not an official vote, that's just sort of, she asked that her comments be made known. And Councilor Cast?
Yes, I just wanted to comment, and I don't know if you want to comment further on it. It seemed like this model, it does seem to be pretty popular with police departments
It is,
nationwide.
yes.
And it looks like Ford has been doing a lot to address specific features
Sure.
that are really good for police to have.
They have, and
Across the board.
I'd be happy to comment on that. First off, we're driving a V6 now and not a V8, so they're doing better on fuel. There is more space for us to put equipment in the vehicles. There's more space for if we have a prisoner. And occasionally we'll arrest a individual who is of larger size, and to stick them in the back of a Crown Vic could be challenging. These vehicles now are a lot roomier in the back. They're safer for the officers when they seatbelt the defendant in the back seat. They don't have to reach across their body. In the past, just a few years ago, we had an officer get spit on and headbutted by a defendant. That no longer can happen based on just how it's set up in the back with the cage and where the seat belts are set up. They're no longer reaching across the body of the individuals. They're all-wheel drive, so we're not fishtailing like we did in the 90s and early 2000s in the Crown Vics, and they are a safe vehicle. I think you're going to see law enforcement in New Hampshire. I think you're going to see the new trend is going to be SUVs, the smaller SUVs, the V6. And I think a lot of it has to do with everything that I just explained. The amount of equipment that we can put in there, and I know a few of you have actually toured the PD and taken a look in our vehicles, and I would invite the new counselors down to come anytime, just make an appointment with me, and I'll show you around the PD, show you what we have, and show you how the cruisers are set up. They're pretty neat what we can fit in there. And it's literally a police officer's office when he steps out of the building. So they can pretty much do anything out of them.
So the only problem that I saw with this model through the years, and it seemed to, I should speak up, right? Sorry. Thanks. There seemed to be some somewhat serious reports about the exhaust system, but it only went up through 2015.
There was
So,
a recall
yeah.
with the exhaust. The fumes were actually getting into the cabin, but I believe that's been addressed.
Yeah.
None of our vehicles have been recalled.
But otherwise, there seemed to be a pretty good feature for the cars idling a long time.
Yes.
And the wear and tear on the
Yeah.
systems from that.
And
And
police
addressing it.
vehicles, when we talk hours, they get hard hours. We have some cars that run 24 hours a day in the wintertime. And they're hard hours. I mean, they're going fast, slow, brakes, you know, and we do our best to keep them maintained. The company that does our work does a fantastic job. But the officers are responsible to maintain the vehicle. They're responsible to make sure that the oil's changed and that the vehicles are clean at all times. And the cruisers are inspected by the supervisors, so they do a good job of policing their own.
Councilor Bowden?
In regards to the cruiser that it's replacing,
Yep.
what happens to the cruiser?
That cruiser, I'm sorry.
And I guess would it make sense for the town to keep that for officers working detail, or?
Well, in the past, to answer your first question, in the past, we have given the vehicle to the town. I believe Mike Hoffman is driving one of our old cruisers, and I believe he gets all of our hand-me-downs. Obviously, the decals are stripped off and the equipment is stripped out, but it served, the vehicles that he's gotten has served its purposes.
He gets a really fast car.
He does, and sometimes we will send them to Concord for the state auction, and we don't really get a lot of money for those. I would dare to say we get $2,000 for the vehicle. So in the past, I know the fire department is driving one of our vehicles from the past. But to keep it at the PD, we don't have a need for that right now. The vehicle that is going to replace the one we're getting rid of is going to become the next detail vehicle, and it is an older SUV. So this car that I want to get rid of is going to, I guess all the cars are going to move down the cycle. So the next oldest car will become the detail vehicle now.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I tried to explain that as, maybe that didn't come across as good. Did you follow me?
Yes.
On that? Okay.
I'll make a comment next, then I'll come back to you, Councilor
Sure.
Cast. Or comment or question. I just, this is almost in honor of a past councilor who I know would be asking a question about bidding process, and I think people that have participated in bidding before, they're always concerned about people that go through the effort to bid and then not get get the low bid and another bid is selected. So I understand what your answer to that question was, and you've heard it in a couple of different ways. How would you approach? I mean, you're still going through bidding, so what kind of difference would, I think we were looking at something in the order of 5% or so in this case, for those services. What would be too much for the current supplier? You said that all of the suppliers do a good job. I'd just like to have a little more.
I'm not following when you're referring to the 5%.
Well, I think that the cost for that part of the services, if I'm mistaken, but it wasn't that part of what you're talking about is in the neighborhood of $17,000, $18,000.
Yes.
So $1,000 out of $17,000 is a slightly more than 5%.
Sure. Yes.
So
Okay, I follow you now. I can tell you, I've worked in this town for 24 years, and I've learned, I've watched and I've learned, and I can tell you that going with the lowest bid is not always the right idea. And I'm not going to give any examples to that, but I can tell you that based on what I've seen in my experience, it's not always the best idea to go with the lowest bid. And I would sacrifice that $890 difference. I would argue that I would lose that money out of my overtime budget to having to pay someone to drive a vehicle back and forth to either Massachusetts to be fixed or back and forth to another location here in town to be fixed.
Okay.
When we worked with Ospey Mountain the past 2 years, we would bring the vehicle up there and they would set it up. And then we'd bring it home in a week when it was done. And then the officers would do a to-do list. They would find out what don't they like in it, what's not working, how do we have to fix this? And we'd make a phone call to Ospey Mountain. We'd meet with Ospey Mountain, and they would fix it right then and there, and it was a one-time deal. Whereas on other times, we've had to drive back and forth to Massachusetts, and it becomes costly with a limited staff.
Okay. Yeah, I guess just last comment on that and move on is that if I'm Ossipee listening to this, I don't know if I feel like I need to be how seriously I take the big process, or if I'm other bidders, I don't know how. That's the concern I have about how valid is the bidding, because what you're really saying is that the service is so much better. So I get it. It's okay. I'm not trying to keep going on that.
Sure.
But I think that's
That was a valid point you bring up.
okay. Councilor Cast.
I just was curious if extended warranties are ever considered?
We do not purchase the extended warranties. We usually get rid of the vehicles between 4 and 6 years.
They don't make sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can tell you, I pulled the vehicle that we have is a 2011 that we're going to get rid of. And in case that question came up, over the past 4 years, since July of 2018, the total amount that we've spent on just wear and tear, tires, brakes, rotors, it's right around $5,157
Okay.
that we spent since 2013. So.
Very good.
And Councilor Weinstein.
I just really have a comment, and I'm familiar with the vehicle that is being replaced, and so I have no question that it needs to be replaced. But whenever we have these things come up, one of the things that's usually included in our packet is the replacement schedule and the CIP just information. And so it's not here, so I just kind of want to send that message back to Steve,
Okay.
that it really should be.
Okay.
Seeing no other comments, can we call the roll?
Counselor Burns.
Aye.
Counselor Finch.
Aye.
Counselor Cast.
Aye.
Counselor Bowden.
Aye.
Counselor Weinstein.
Aye.
Chairman Pike. I'm going to vote nay just to honor Councilor Thompson's comment. So,
Motion passes 5-1.
Okay. And next, let me get this open again. The Resolution 2016-17-30, purchase of a Motorola APX 6500 VHF high-power digital mobile radio for the police department. Whereas the police department seeks to replace the currently obsolete Motorola Astro Police Digital Mobile Radio with a new Motorola APX 6500 high-power digital radio at the state bid price of $4,094. And whereas this installation will be completed during the setup of a new police cruiser at no additional cost to the town, and whereas the police dispatch radio's capital reserve fund currently has a balance of $157,309, now therefore be it resolved that the Newmarket Town Council does hereby approve the withdrawal of funds not to exceed $4,094 from the police dispatch radio's capital reserve fund for the purpose of purchasing a new Motorola digital mobile radio from the Capital Reserve Fund, and to authorize the town administrator to execute any associated agreements. And there was a misspelling of funds. It says no to exceed, and it should be not to exceed on the last, now therefore be it resolved. So I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
And any questions, comments? Councilor Burns.
I just have a question.
Sure.
So this is in the description from the town administrator. This is to replace the radio from the 2011 Ford Crown Victoria that you're getting rid of, right?
Yes.
So does normally, or not normally, but at times, do you take a radio from another
We do.
cruiser and put it
Yes.
into the, okay.
We do. Unfortunately, the radio that's in the 2011 it's an antiquated, unsupported radio right now. If it breaks, we'd have to buy one anyway.
Okay.
And I have two of those radios still left in my fleet that I'm concerned about. And what we have done in the past is we have saved radios. If we had a spare, we would save it and try to piecemeal one together to make it work, as opposed to buying them all the time. This radio that is coming out of the 2011 is unsupported if it breaks. It doesn't make sense to me to take an unsupported radio that could break at any time and put it in a brand new vehicle. So that's why I am asking for a new radio
Okay, that makes sense.
out of
Thank you.
DCIP.
Councilor Cast.
I had a question also. Am I correct that the threshold for town council approval was 10K? Requiring town council approval? So I
think
just had a
that-
question, if that's true, my question is then, does this need our approval? I understand it's bundled with the car, or the installation's covered, or bundled, or covered by the car purchase, and there is some relationship between the two, but it is a separate resolution, so that's the source of my question.
It's always my belief that if any funds that were withdrawn from capital CIP needed to be approved by the council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Weinstein.
I'm just going to repeat my comment that we should have the backup data for the capital reserve.
So noted.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, you can call the roll, please.
Councilor Burns.
Aye.
Councilor Finch.
Aye.
Councilor Cast.
Aye.
Councilor Bowden.
Aye.
Councilor Weinstein.
Aye.
Councilor Pike.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay. We move on to new business. There's a item that remains on the table, the about designation of the portion of Route 152. Hopefully in our new term, new year, we can get that moved on.
Get off the table.
And so move on to new business and town council to consider nominations and appointments First of all, McAllen Dam Study Committee, Leo Fillion, for a term to expire in 2020. And to a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
And since I'm the town council representative to the dam committee, I will comment that Leo Fillion is a wealth of history when it comes to the McAllen Dam, and has been around almost from the beginning, it seems like, and is a valuable member. Call the roll, please.
Counselor Burns.
Aye.
Counselor Finch.
Aye.
Counselor Cast.
Aye.
Counselor Bowden.
Aye.
Counselor Weinstein.
Aye.
Chairman Pike.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Next is Newmarket Housing Authority Commissioner Amy Mash for a term expiring March of 2022. Motion to approve, please.
I'll make a motion to approve Amy Mash.
Second.
Any comments?
Yes, I know Amy Mash for the last couple of months, and I know that she was attending meetings of the Housing Authority, prior to her application, and she's very enthused and energetic and ready to go. Very excited.
Great. Call the roll, please.
Counselor Burns.
Aye.
Was it-
Oh, sorry.
Was there a comment?
The term?
Term expiration is March 20. I read it before, but it was, I think, or did I read the wrong term?
It's crossed out, it says 5 on her.
Maybe,
application.
where did I get that?
In a letter, it says,
Yeah, the letter says through 2022, but I guess the
Yep.
application is unclear.
No, it's crossed out, it says 5 on
Okay,
her
so I
application.
think that is,
okay.
that's okay.
Counselor Burns.
Aye.
Counselor Finch.
Aye.
Counselor Cast.
Aye.
Counselor Bowden.
aye.
Counselor Weinstein.
Aye.
Chairman Pike.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
And the last nomination is for Library Trustee Mary Mahoney for a term expiring March of 2020. Motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Second?
Any comments? Call the roll, please.
Counselor Burns.
Aye.
Counselor Finch.
Aye.
Counselor Cast.
Aye.
Counselor Bowden.
Aye.
Counselor Weinstein.
Aye.
Chairman Pike.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
And since we have 3 nominations here, I think it's a good opportunity to say we have a lot of boards and committees and commissions in the town. Appreciate everybody's service on those. Okay, I have 3 ordinances and resolutions for first reading. I think the first one, which is adopting a new part of the administrative code, I think we'll read in title only, as it's several pages. Yeah. And so this is ordinance number 3-2016-2017, an ordinance adopting Chapter 1, Article 2 of the Code of the Town of Newmarket, New Hampshire, the Administrative Code. And I'll just make a comment about that. This would be available in the packet online, but it is reorganizing the organization of the administrative department of the town. And zipping through those 8 or 10, 12 pages of that, I move on to, here we go, Resolution 2016-17-31, authorizing the town administrator to enter into an agreement with Wright Pierce Engineers for construction services and oversight for the North Main Street Water and Sewer Main Project. Whereas the State of New Hampshire Department of Transportation is installing 4-foot bike lanes and new drainage on North Main Street as part of their project number 13080B, and whereas the New Hampshire DOT will relocate the water and sewer facilities in the project area at the same time, and whereas Wright Pierce has completed design for the North Main Street water main and sewer main replacement project, and Now therefore, let it be resolved, the town council does hereby approve the town administrator to enter into an agreement with Wright Pierce for the sum of $42,500 for the North Main Street Water and Sewer Project Construction Administration and Oversight. And one more to read. And it's probably worth saying, but if when you're looking over things that are in the first reading, this is probably was mentioned last time, but I didn't see it, but if you have any questions about that, feel free to send them to the town administrator so that he has, we always ask questions at the second reading anyways, but if there's something that you notice, it's a good thing to let him know. So the next resolution, 2617-32, authorizing the town administrator to join the appeal of the MS4 stormwater permit by the New Hampshire Stormwater Coalition. The Environmental Protection, whereas the Environmental Protection Agency issued a finalized MS4 permit on January 18, 2017, which will take place on July 1, 2018, and Newmarket will be in immediate non-compliance and subject to litigation. And whereas the New Hampshire Stormwater Coalition is a group of New Hampshire municipalities fighting the MS4 permit and working with the state to establish a process that New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services approves, and whereas the New Hampshire Stormwater Coalition has secured the services of the law firm of Sheehan Finney of Manchester, New Hampshire, and John Hall and Associates of Washington, D.C. to represent the group, and whereas it is the belief of the town council that appealing the MS4 is in the best interest of the town. Now therefore be it resolved that the Newmarket Town Council does hereby authorize the town administrator to enter into an agreement with Sheehan Finney of Manchester, which is representing the New Hampshire Stormwater Coalition, to appeal the MS4 permit. Be it further resolved that the Newmarket Town Council does hereby authorize the town administrator to withdraw and expend an amount not to exceed $8,000 from the Stormwater Capital Reserve Fund for this purpose. This amount represents the town share based on its population from the 2010 census. Newmarket would be approximately 2% of the group. Okay. That takes care of that part of the agenda. I have no, outside of the correspondence from Councilor Thompson, which I've relayed already, I have no other correspondence to the town council. Councilor Weinstein? I'm first, Councilor Bowden, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to mention that on April 20, I'm actually, try to be funny.
Steal my thunder.
Steal your thunder, right. I just want to make a comment and give thanks to Job Hopik on the work that has been done, either getting the fields ready, athletic fields, and keeping folks off of the fields so they don't get destroyed, rutted up because of the winter. It's just ended. A lot of parents of the athletes that are playing want to get the kids out and on the field, but you need to understand that, you know, they are playing on taxpayer field. So again, just want to thank John and his crew for doing a great job. So.
Thank you. Councilor Weinstein?
So I have a few things.
Okay.
There are several events coming up that I wanted to bring people's attention to. So the first is a drug take-back day sponsored by the police department, and that's April 29th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And people can bring in any prescription drugs that are no longer needed or expired. This is a huge help in getting dangerous prescriptions off the streets, and also we don't, even like penicillins or amoxicillin and stuff like that, we don't want them in our water supply because that was really common practice to just flush things, and we don't want that to happen. So a lot of prescriptions get abused, or leftover prescriptions, I should say, get abused, and so if it's your parent, your grandparent who maybe was ill and they don't need their prescription anymore, it's time to clean out those cabinets and give them to the police department, and they accept them without question. Last time, how much did you collect?
It was a lot. It was 4 big boxes of unused rugs. So it was a huge success. And we encourage people to reach out to family members, grandparents, and ask them to turn them in if they have no need for them.
And I know, speaking from personal experience, like my mother had cancer a couple years ago, and she was prescribed all kinds of medicines and a lot of painkillers, and she didn't want to take any of them, but they encourage you to fill them. And so she filled them all, and then she had all these pills in her cabinet. So I'm sure she's not the only person who's been through that. So, and the other thing that it's kind of a pet peeve of mine is old prescriptions that you may have for your pets. I know I've been guilty of that, and there are some powerful medications out there that people get prescribed for their animals. So
Never thought of that. That's great.
yeah. So that's the first thing. And that's again April 29th from 10 to 2. And that same day, right next door, is the yard sale at the senior center, the Sunrise Sunset Center, and I'll be there. I have a table, and people could rent tables for $20, but then you can just kind of come and browse, so it's rain or shine, and it's a nice group of people. So there's that, and then the last thing that I have, and I have flyers that I'm gonna see if I can hang out outside. 3 years ago, we organized a roadside cleanup, and this is not the spring cleanup that the town does. This is a roadside cleanup to pick up trash along our roadways. And anyone who's driven up and down Grant Road or Ash Swamp Road, you see all of the bottles and debris along the side of the road. I happen to live on Ash Swamp Road, and I walk that loop, Ash Swamp to Wadley Falls to Grant, or to Langs, and then up to Grant, and the amount of trash on the side of the road is despicable. It's just disgusting. So the first year we did it, we picked up 30 bags of trash. The second year we did it, we picked up 60 bags of trash. So we're hoping to, again, clean up the roads. And that'll be on May 7th. Anyone can participate. It's from 2 to 5. That's a Sunday afternoon. We're working with DPW to make sure people are safe. They're giving us some signage. And everyone's welcome to help. And I think that's all I have.
Where can they get the bags?
Oh, we're gonna provide them. So we'll provide bags. We'll have water and candy and gloves. And there's some guidelines. Again, I have a flyer. It's all over Facebook, but I'll hang one up here and around town. We have some guidelines that we suggest: wearing bright clothing and work boots and work gloves. So that's it.
Thank you. Councilor Burns.
Yes, so I just wanted to give kind of a friendly reminder to anybody driving in and around Newmarket of something that I've witnessed on more than one occasion, and that's just to be very careful around the school buses. I've noticed, the school buses coming to a stop, and people are just in a hurry getting to work or coming from work and whiz by the bus, and it could be kind of a very terrible thing if things go wrong. So just please be careful when around the buses when you're driving around Newmarket.
Okay, and
Bus driver should have a camera. Take a picture.
And I just wanted to give everybody my last comment, to give a heads up. One of the things that that people that have been on the council before know that it's kind of a challenge sometimes to go through a process and try to deliver it on time, where we every year we get new goals, we give new goals to the town administrator, we evaluate the town administrator, and it is had been very difficult historically not to end up behind the schedule that you'd like to be on. So it's sort of one of the things that I met with town administrator for a few minutes a couple days ago. Anyways, have a proposed schedule. So it's surprising, because even though you think, well, you're just getting started, we will actually be launching on that, so that the goal will be, his goals run through the fiscal year, which ends June 30th. And so we worked on a schedule so that, you know, he doesn't end up, we only have one meeting usually in July and one meeting in August. It's very easy to find it in a situation where he really doesn't have his official goals wrapped up until he has 10 months left to work with. And so instead, I'd like to see if we can have the goals, new goals created by the end of June, and also evaluate on past goals. And this is a contract year coming out. So there's a schedule coming out, but we'll be looking at up to 3 non-publics to discuss some of these things in the next couple of months. So just kind of wanted you to be aware of that. And because I think we the last council went through the process. We had Primex, I believe it was, that came in, and we created sort of suggested goals for the next council. But I think it's, that was something that happened in February. I would say those are goals that we were trying to look at the goals we had at that time and other goals. So I think none of those should be considered to be finalized, in the sense that, this is the council that will set the goals for the council for the next 12 months and also for the town administrator. So there'll be an email forwarded with just sort of where those dates are. And I think that's pretty much what we have.
Are there any changes in the goals that have been set forth and the dates?
Well, the only goals that are set right now are the goals he's had for some time.
Okay.
And those are the goals that's when we evaluate those, and there's no changes yet in the goals that we looked at and created during that Primex meeting to be town council goals for the next year. So those were created by the last council, and the thought was that we focus mostly not on the goals that he already had for the next few months, because we were doing that in February. He already had goals, and the council already had goals that took us through the end of the fiscal year. But I still think it's something that is worth conversation. And when it comes to town council goals, of course, that should and can take place in public session. So, and I have also, one of the things I've been made to understand and been reminded of a couple of times is we don't have a motion to adjourn. I can just say that we have completed our business and are adjourned.
Great, thank you.
Oh, that was the other thing I had.
Can we unadjourn? Did you have something else you needed to say?
The Boston Cane ceremony is tomorrow.
I know that, yes.
So, for anyone who doesn't know, that's given to the Newmarket's oldest resident. And that is tomorrow at 10:30 at the Sunrise Sunset Center. So, thank you.
I'm working towards that. Someday I'll be the oldest.
So I reestablish our adjournment.
So moved.
Night, everybody. Okay.
Thank you.